Fellow travelers, friends, welcome to the Dialogues Within. These are dialogues with myself and conversations with my friends. Most important of all, these are honest dialogues steeped in truth. Fellow travelers and friends, I recently had a good fortune of invitation to participate in a meeting of a consulting firm, a social innovation and design consulting firm, which goes by the name of Ream Consulting. This is a very interesting company, youngsters who have built it, Damani and Yash. Damani is an alumni of Harvard and Yash is from Cambridge. An eclectic group of youngsters are there working in this company and mainly designing and doing social innovation. There is a very interesting way how they begin their day. They begin their day by discussing an academic paper, something intellectual, or maybe a podcast. A day before, the podcast or the academic paper is circulated amongst the company employees, their associates and such people, and they read it and come. In that 1 hour, they ideate on it, discuss the paper, the insights in that paper, and also how they can use these insights in their work. A very interesting concept. If you imagine, it's a young company, just 3-year-old, and for 3 years these youngsters have been doing this. So I was pretty excited when I went for this meeting, and I had decided that I'll be silent, a passive listener. And the topic on that date when I attended was a chapter in Neil Gaiman's book, View from Cheap Seats. And the chapter was The Four Bookshop. Interesting chapter about how bookshops shaped Neil Gaiman into reading. And the discussion began. It was beautifully right in the beginning of the discussion. What was brought out was the spectrum of the books. How books actually interpret reality which is around in this world. And also the journey within. The huge spectrum of the book which encompasses just everything was how the youngsters described it. And then one of them said that books are eternal. An interesting thought. Why are they eternal? They are eternal because they tell the stories of human beings, the nation, the society, the civilization, the culture, and these stories are what our world is all about. So the books are eternal. I did agree with them on this. And I slowly got sucked into the conversation. I decided to be a passive listener, but then I could not help myself and to participate. I really lost myself into the discussion, and the discussion was dancing around sharp, insights and meandering around various ways how these young minds were looking at books. And one of them said that they are a stimuli for ideas and action. At that point, I realized how these young professionals are using this article as a discourse to unspool creativity, which is basically their job as innovation. And then one of them commented that what is innovation? Innovation is creating more from less. A very terse, but a very beautiful way of speaking about innovation. And then when they were speaking of stimuli, one of them meandered over to quoting Rick Rubin, the great musician, that he says there's something so natural about great songs that one feels immediately satisfied with them. And the same is true with books. Same is true with books. And at this point I interjected. I just couldn't stop myself. And I said, do books happen in life? And then everybody got thinking whether books happen in one's life or whether you choose a book. Me, I actually, whenever I go to a bookshop, I read a bit of a book. I see it, measure it, hold it, see its texture, how dense it is, feel it. And sometimes I feel the energy of the book speaks to me, and I feel that, yes, I'm going to read this book now. Now it has happened in my life. So, I feel books happen in our lives. When I was a small child, my father was a professor, we had a library at home. And it was not exactly a library, it was a room adjacent to the drawing room. It had a couple of chairs and it had bookshelves. And I, as a child, used to wander around that place. There were books which were about English literature, there were books about Hindi literature, and then a lot of books on economics, because my father was a professor of economics. I used to feel these books are actually human minds sitting there in the shelf. And my imaginative child's mind used to think that maybe at night these authors become alive, come and sit in these chairs and discuss their books and ideas. That was a thought which I used to have as a child about books. And then in Himachal Pradesh University at Shimla, I had a neighbor, an uncle, again a professor, Professor Rao, who was a professor of biochemistry. He also had a huge library of books, and in each book there was this sticker which said Ex Libris, which meant from the library of Professor Rao. He used to sign it below Ex Libris. So those were the thoughts which I shared with those children, and books have been my companion since childhood. I've lived with books, you know. I've traveled with books, I've slept with books. I've read books everywhere. I've read a book on a deck of a ship. I've read a book while after a long trek in the hills. I've read a book in a train like anyone else. I've read a book on a railway platform. I think books have been my companion all through my life. But then coming back to the discussion was meandering that what is book something which fills up time for us? Say, if you're waiting, you read a book. Or is it something else? But then one of them said that it's a primary task to read books. Oh, this statement really warmed me up. It really warmed me up for a youngster to say this, that reading book is a primary task. In this attention deficit society, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I felt very, very happy hearing that. Really, from inside, I felt very happy. And books, they make you laugh. They make you cry. They give you courage. They instill fear. They disturb you. Books have many shades, many, many shades. But do books have a soul? I think they do. I think they have a soul. I mean, when you are reading a book, you laugh or cry or you go with the protagonist or identify with someone, you are actually living with that book. At that time, the book is live. But sometimes a half-read book which is kept on a table and you want to go to it and read it. It's like a book which is beckoning you. A soul of the book is calling the reader, come read me, I want to say something. In that sense, books have a soul. Friends, I must confess that I cry when I read books. Maybe I'm very emotional. And on the side, in our society, boys and men are not supposed to cry. is taken as weakness. I personally don't think so. Like you say, what is courage? Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is presence of faith. And courage is not giving up despite presence of fear, doing the right thing. Similarly, crying does not mean that a person is weak. It only means that the person is moved. So, I feel this something around crying and the men should not cry or boys should not cry in society, I think it should change. It should change. But then, I meandered. I still think, what would be an ideal place for me to read a book? And the ideal place which I imagine is a room up in the Himalayas, and it's evening, there are books around me, the fireplace is burning, it's quiet. You can off and on hear the cackle of the wood burning, a book in hand, golden lights, reading. That's something which I dream about a place where I would love to read endlessly. But then, these are dreams. Let me share you what books I'm reading presently with you. Well, I'm reading two books presently. One is The Age of AI. It's a very interesting book. Artificial intelligence is going to change our world. It's going to make it very exciting, but at the same time, scary also. There's the cutting edge, what's happening and what's the present state of affairs in the world of artificial intelligence. Very interesting book. And the second book which I am reading right now is Conversations by historian B.N. Goswami. A very charming book and also a calming book. It's about, he's an art historian, B.N. Goswami, and he engages with 101 themes in this book. And each theme gives you an interpretation of things around you. By reading this, I felt not only calm, but also came to know more about myself and the surroundings around me. Friends, I also have one habit, whenever I buy a book, I write something where I have bought and all those things, and I also make a bookmark and put it in a book and leave it after reading it. So this book, here it is. This book was bought at Mumbai on 21st May 2020 at the airport. And here's the bookmark in this book. It says, "The written word is a portrait of painter of wisdom. A dark night ushering in a day, a wand of treasure of insight, speaking through stationery, yet traveling and soaring." This is by Abul Fazl Inaini Akbari. Friends, I also believe that books have this magic that they can change our world to be more beautiful. And for each of us, there is some book waiting outside which will change us. So fellow travelers and friends, go out in the world, find the book which will change you. Keep reading. Peace and joy to you. Smiles and cheers.